email.
He needs it on his email. You have his email?
Stand by.
Jovan Pulitzer at Gmail.
Stand by.
Go ahead.
Copy that. Going to email.
Some sort of intro problem that it's not even taking my email again, and I'm trying over and over to re-enter it.
All right. How about if you put it on your phone and then switch it over? It goes right to your email once you put it in from your phone.
Steve, tell Jovan that I have texted him the. I've texted him the link.
You text him the link?
I've emailed it to him. I've emailed him the link.
Emailed you the link.
Wait, hang on. Let me do this again. Asking for my credits all over again. Hold on.
Bear with us, folks. We're just getting some of our speakers on the call. We'll be starting in a few moments.
Maybe it's letting me in now. Hold on. Let's see. It says something now. It says I can join. Let me see what happened.
Yeah, he thinks you can get on now. So let me.
Thank you.
Okay, you got it. Let's start with the flag thing, and then you talk a few minutes. He talk. He'll be on in a second.
Copy that. I see Jovan there. Jovan, can you hear me? All right, you're in good shape. You look great. All right, stand by. All right, everyone, welcome to the call. Thank you for being here. As you know, it takes a huge amount of effort to put these calls on, and so we ask you to support that by wearing this kind of a shirt here. I will tell you this, my friends, this is my second shirt from the flag shirt. And when I go to the grocery stores, I can literally see people getting encouraged. I mean, some people, I've not yet met anyone who's turned off, but this particular flag shirt has actually got the U.S. flag on it, as you can see. The other shirt I have has the U.S. Constitution. And I will find people smiling at me, and the checkout people at the grocery store say, man, I love your shirt. So you want to make a difference without saying a word? Go to the flagshirt.com and get yourself one of these high quality garments.
Men or women?
What's that?
We have them in men and women to match.
Men and women. We are an equal opportunity retailer. Equal opportunity retailer. So
no tariffs on the shirts yet.
No tariffs on the shirt.
Offering a discount on these shirts.
Yeah.
They were made in Palm Beach County.
All right, we're having a lot of fun, so let's get started.
Let's do it, and here we go.
What defines the American spirit? Preserving life, liberty, and pursuing happiness. Caring for the nation we call home and its people. As patriots, it's our duty to drive the entrepreneurial spirit, pushing hard, reaching for success, sharing patriotism, because the American way of life is for all to live.
I'm Steve Stern, CEO of Flagshirt.com, a third-generation, veteran-owned small business. I believe that the American way of life is for all of us. I'm asking you today to visit Flagshirt.com. Help keep the American dream alive.
The Flag Shirt, where freedom reigns.
And thank you for that from the flag shirt. And over to you, Steve, before we bring our first speaker on.
So our next Zoom is going to be on the 24th of April. We're leaving go because of Passover and Easter. I want to wish everybody a happy holiday because we won't be speaking to them. We're expecting between 8 and 10 million people on today. We want to thank Rumble for putting us up on the top page. We want to thank Getter, the War Room, Facebook, Cloud Hub, Lindell TV. We're on Stern American Live. If you can't get on our Zoom or if you get thrown off, go to Stern American Live Rumble to get on. We have 184 podcasts streaming this, radio, many areas. And we want to thank everybody. Every week we get new people, and a lot of people ask us how we get new people. Well, a lot of our podcasters are giving us new people, and that's a big way to get new people. Rumble is starting to get us new people. So every week we add a couple of podcasters, and of course we have to get rid of some of them because some of the people don't respond. So if they don't respond, then I have no idea why, but they don't. So our first guest, the famous Jovan Pulitzer, inventor, author, top election security guy, also producer of our Flag Day event and always helps me whenever I need them. And thank you very much, Jovan. So come on down.
Okay, so let's see if I can share my screen here in a minute. How's it going, everybody? I'm going to do just a little bit of a recap. We're going to jump into exactly where we are because we know we had Wisconsin go wrong for all the same old reasons, and then what we can do about it. But this is more about dealing with basically what is called comparative analysis. And so I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a thumbs up,
I can see your screen.
Dan or Stan. You can see my
good.
screen. Okay, great.
Screen looks
I'm
good.
gonna share this with you, mainly just to give you a brief look back in time, because this can help you understand what we're dealing with. This is a look at mail-in voting from 2020, from the start of mail-in voting through Election Day at the dotted line, and then after Election Day with the additional days they need counted. The reason this matters is because this is now what's happening in every state as a standard. You need to understand more than 1 month after the November election in 2020, they were still counting, even though they turned in a certified number, which they missed, but they added in on December 8th and 9th, 118,019 votes. Now, this is what you find when you look at the paper and you look at the dates at when it came in. How does anybody add in 118,019 votes? Well, I want to explain to you maybe in a little more succinct way what we're dealing with. Anytime we deal with anything in the machines, and now thankfully, because Sydney's tweeting this and understands this jeopardy, as we all talk about, quote unquote, it's the machines, etc., you have to understand that everything that has to do with the machines and enforcement is 100% voluntary. Folks, we spent over 4 years fighting the machines and saying the machines did this, the machine did that. But just the premise of fighting on the machines, when we get to court, there's nothing we can do because every standard from functionality to accessibility to security capabilities is voluntary. This is where we are today, folks, and this is what we're facing. And there's 2 numbers you need to add to this screen. Number 1, if you were to look at the popular vote, Barack Obama, first time out, 69 million votes. Second time out, 65 million votes. Hillary, 65 million votes. Supposedly Joe Biden, I call that the middle finger throwing us all the bird because it is, 81 million votes. And then you look at Kamala on election day, 68 million votes. But what you need to understand is between November of this past election cycle to now, they have increased that number to 75 million. That is the Kamala Trump vote. They're continuing to roll up those numbers. The reason they're doing it is because Biden's numbers stuck out. It's too alarming, and it lets people see that they really did something nefarious in 2020, which everybody on this call knows. Now, we went through this in November with President Trump. Yes, President Trump got in. Do I believe it was banking ballots or ballot chasing? Hell no. What they did is they focused for another 60 days to take the down ticket. This screen should concern you because I believe we're in for a problem when we hit the midterms. This is everything about the midterms. And Joaquin Jeffries is already talking about he believes he has the House. Now, the one number that is not added to this screen is what quite could possibly be 8 million illegals motor voter dropped right to the voter rolls. So the cushion that they have is greater than they've ever had in time before. This is what we're up against, folks. Between right now and midterms, we've got 579 days. You have to back out 90 days for the rule of law that says you can't change the voter rolls. They can add to it, but you can't clean the voter rolls, boot people off 90 days prior to an election. Then you have to back out if we really were serious about cleaning the voter rolls, not just submitting spreadsheets, which won't do it, not submitting documentation, which will give us the upper hand and allow us to remove it by maladministration.
But that's about 120 days, 180 days worth of work right there. If we were going to do it right and we all decided to tackle the United States and 180 million or 169.8 million on the voter rolls. Then if you think of the fact that even if you did do the work, there's about 160 days of lawfare, 150 days of lawfare involved, if we're lucky. And so in reality, as we sit on this call today, if we want to talk about our responsive time to the midterms, the next thing we must deal with, we only have about 156 net days. That's the truth. That's what we're dealing with. Now with that, I want to show you a truth, because what's really interesting is not only did the media ignore this, not only did Arizona ignore it, but many people in election integrity never bothered to pick up the phone and get educated and see what the numbers were and to understand the methodology. Mainly because everybody had their own flavor of the day. Everybody had their own special program, and many people thought it was just the machines by default. So let's just kind of ride that out. Well, here we are 4 years later, very little has changed. I want to point you to some specific figures I'm going to show you. If you look at the paper, remember, when you saw that little F chart go up, that's not votes being added by tabulators, that's paper running through the system, they're running in late. If you look to the right, I'm going to show you how to go deeper into this, because this is where the problem is. This is what they just executed in Wisconsin. This is what they executed in the down ticket when the Democrats have about a 26 to 28% approval rating, but they gained down ticket. None of the numbers matched when you look at the physical data. You can chase the machines all day long. You can't show it, you can't prove it, and it's voluntary. The only thing we ever have anything to deal with is the paper. Now, I want to show you how an audit cross-references itself. Please pay attention, because we're going to have to deal with this in Wisconsin, and we're going to have to deal with it when this battle evidently hits in the midterms. I've randomly chosen one precinct in Maricopa in 2020. If you look at the screen, the only thing you really need to know is the green means it was printed by the official printer. This is the ballot. So this is 3,126 ballots. Only 49% of them were printed by the official printer. 25% of them are questionable, but it may be their secondary machine. 22% were printed by a machine that should have never been printing ballots. This is important because that's the on-demand stuff. Just remember that in your head, 20% off. And I think it's kind of interesting, all numbers are 20% off, but let's keep on going. One way to look at it is the quality of the ballot. Second way to look at it, remember the numbers, just write this one down. Here's the same precinct, and we're looking at the bleed throughs, what everybody called Sharpie Gate, what everybody poo-pooed, right? Very few people dug into, but when you get too many extra marks on the ballot, it adjudicates it. The two things you need to understand on here, see that number 20.17% on the top half? In an adjudication cycle, when it should have been anywhere between a 2 and a 5% adjudication, this feature alone adjudicated the ballot 20.17% of the times. 1 out of every 5 ballots got kicked back. It affected 250 ballots in this batch. What you need to know is, if you look at the right, the worst was for every 1 vote, you had 7.5 additional votes that were ghost bleed through ovals. Just remember the number 20.17%. Last but not least, on this one, I'm just giving you one batch. The machine folded. We all know a mail-in ballot day. You know, the mail-in ballot, you get officially's color. It's supposed to be folded by a machine. The little red lines on the left is where we found every single fold on the ballots. It should not have exceeded 84.13%. However, you can see in this one precinct, the machine folds only represented 73.14%. That means only 73% of them could have actually been a mail-in ballot. The hand fold should not have exceeded 7.53%. That's their numbers, not ours. But if you look at the hand folds, they had 3 more percent hand folds. 3 more percent hand folds that should have never been there. So how do you get extra hand folds? unless you're stuffing the early votes. Last but not least, the no folds. No fold is election day. They should not exceed 8.34%. This one precinct, if you look at it, basically doubled it. All flat ballots. This is where the paper tells the story that you're never going to find on the machine. Now, here's how you need to understand that audits cross audit themselves. Remember, I just showed you, and I've showed you this before, but I'm showing it a different way. This is important because they tell on themselves. If you do a proper audit, each audit function confirms the last and shows you the story. You remember I showed you at the beginning, just this one precinct batch, that 22% of the ballots were printed totally out of range and out of calibration? Well, I want to set something up for you real quick. There were 1,675 boxes of ballots in Maricopa in 2020. All of those boxes should have been sealed, and in those boxes should have been 8 batches. Those batches are kept together with a batch card to tell you how many votes there were. But I want to remind you, out of 1,675 boxes, only 52 boxes were sealed by law. Out of 1,675, only 52 were sealed by law, meaning the batches were together, they were sealed, they were never opened since Election Day. Now, why do I tell you that? The remaining 1,600 plus, all the boxes were in disarray. All of the batch header cards were at the bottom. Batches were missing ballots, and predominantly all the boxes had been stuffed with ballots and they'd just been put on the top. Now that tells you they were rifled through, rearranged, etc. But here's what's more important. Please pay attention to the screen, because when everybody ignored this and focused on machines, this is what your payday was you got to ignore because you bought into the machines. So use this as a rule of thumb. Now let's look at a random sampling of those 52 boxes. The reason those 52 boxes were sealed is because on the close of Election Day, they were personally chosen by Katie Hobbs and Mr. Fontes in Arizona that said, if we get audited, right, a random sample audit, if we get audited, we're going to look at these boxes only. So look at your screen real quick. Now let me show you a peek into the 52 boxes. Here are samples of the 52 boxes. See where it says 49 of 52? That's box 49 of 52. Box 40 of 52. Box 2 of 52. Box 36 of 52. There are 36 boxes that look like this. Do you notice a difference on anything in the chart? If you actually look at the chart, if you look at what they set aside to be audited, which is supposed to be random, you do realize, isn't it funny that none of the 52 boxes set aside have any problems when it comes to printing? Do you see that? This doesn't lie. This is empirical data based on the machines. Not a single one of the machines from these magical 52 boxes was out of calibration, whereas 1,600 plus boxes all looked like this. Now let's go to the Sharpie gate that was supposedly non-existent. Remember Sharpie gate, I showed you 20% adjudication, 750%, meaning 7.5 bleed throughs to 1 legal vote. Let's look at these same 52 boxes set aside. What's the adjudication rate? Exactly in line with the norm. 0.5%, 0%, 3%, 1%. That's standard and to be expected. But where you don't find that is in all the 1,600 plus other boxes. When you look at the ones they set aside, you don't find it. Now let's talk about the folds, with the folds being out of whack. Remember, we're supposed to have machine fold at 84%. hand folded at 7.53%, no folds at 8.34%. I showed you this one precinct. It all failed. Let's look at those 52 boxes. Now, here's a really interesting phenomenon. This is 3 snips of those boxes. On the first one, you have, it should not exceed 84% folded based on how they batched them. Well, they've got 97.5% folded. Now you see the gray? The gray is no fold. Now you got to read the chart underneath it. You answer it for me. These are all early votes, which means mail or hand fold. Why do they have no folds? Let's look at the next batch in 52. Again, 94.5%, but this one has 5.5% absolutely flat, but it's 100% early votes. Day of votes, mail-in voting. Let's go to the next one. This one's got 84% machine folded, but it's got 15.3% that are absolutely flat, but yet it is another 100% mail-in vote and early vote. Why show you that? You can see charts all day long of Fs and theories and algorithm and fractal pterodactyls and everything else. And it doesn't matter what you show, because everything dealing with the physical machines is voluntary rules as defined by the Election Assistance Commission. Now, this was exposed early on, but many people, even watching this program right now, bought into Arizona audit was a grift. Oh, I didn't do a report. They didn't do it. It's the machines, melt them to prison bars. And we wasted 4 years chasing machines, which can't be enforced, when every single ballot that is out of whack is a felony at both the state and the federal level. Now, why do I bring this up? I bring it up because personally, one, it disgusts me not only where we sit as a country because we have so little time to deal with it, but it disgusts me in the election integrity arena that it became this little click stuff and people just couldn't see empirical data. And now they have continued. They did this in 22, they did it in 24, and now they've done it in 25. But we ran around and chased a lot of things, except how do we understand how they do it? And in all that time, where we know Biden didn't get 81 million votes, and then we allowed them to let Kamala without looking, because see, Trump won, everybody's excited. Trump won, we're in, and that's great. Mind you, that's great. But they inched up Kamala to close that gap and have put almost 8 million illegals on the rolls. And even with the rolls, again, it says, raise money, do it my way, but we're going to send in charts, which don't get anything off the rolls. So why do I bring this up? Because the clock's ticking, folks. Yes, we all talk about election integrity, but it's become clicks or who's the most prominent one or who gets credit. And in all this mix, we lost the things that we can do to fix this. I will give you a very good example. We didn't win 24 because of ballot chasing or ballot banking, which is only another name for early vote, and mail-in vote, which we know the problem is. In the GOP, it just rebranded it. Then we were sold the con, well, they're going to run out of ballots. Of course they're going to run out of ballots. But you know what? That's a blessing, because by law, they have to let you vote. Now, what this system does against us, and I'm going to play a video. Will I be able to play, Raj?
You should be able to.
Okay, I'm going to play a video. You don't have to listen to me. Let me pull it up. I'm going to play for you an expert at this, that an expert that knows how the system works, an expert that knows how to drive elections and to get people to vote. Where we lose is on conflicting messaging. I'm just waiting for it to load up here. But in this expert, you will see, literally beyond a shadow of a doubt, one of the top experts in the world on elections and how this is done, etc., explaining to you, let me make sure I got the right one. Hang on.
How long is the video, Jovan?
1 minute.
Okay.
If I can find it now, it dropped from my screen. Hang on 1 second. It's just 1 minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, damn it. It dropped from my system. I'm just trying to pull it back up, but it's such a critical video. Here we go. I'm going to open it first just so it's on my screen. Stand by. Pause. Going back. Sharing my screen. Got to make sure we have sound. I'm sharing sound. I'm showing my screen. I want you to listen to the words. Because number one, you can be an election integrity expert and you can see the stuff with your own eyes, but get caught in a promotion, get caught in catchphrases because the system moves us around like a bunch of weak pawns. They move it to continue to win. They move it to keep us from winning, and they move it to keep us from working together. But I want you to listen to the master of it. And I want you to see if you catch in the words what the instruction set is and what was set up by the system.
If you want to vote and you show up at your polling place, they can't stop you from voting. They can't stop you from voting. If people want to know how to vote, then you can go to iwillvote.com. The fact of the matter is that we give our power away all the time. You know, we tell ourselves, oh, it's hard, it's not going to matter, it's not going to count. And the powers that be, they're counting on us giving our power away.
Many of the millennials, dreamers, undocumented citizens, and I call them citizens because they contribute to this country, are fearful of voting. So if I vote, will immigration know where I live? Will they come for my family and deport us?
Not true.
Okay.
And the reason is, first of all, when you vote, you are a citizen yourself, and there is not a situation where the voting rolls somehow are transferred over and people start investigating, et cetera. The sanctity of the vote is strictly confidential in terms of who you voted for. If you have a family member who maybe is undocumented, then you have an even greater reason to vote.
This has been a
And so he told you the vote's private, which means you separate it from the envelope and mail in. You never know what it is. You can't put it back anyway, which you can't do looking at the machine either. You can only do it looking backwards. He told you just show up and vote. Doesn't matter. By law, they have to let you vote. He also told you, don't worry. Nobody's going back to the databases and comparing the data and checking it out, which is exactly what 3,800 counties were told over the last 4 years. Don't screw with the paperwork, looking deep into everything. It's just the machines. We got it covered. We've got it. Folks, we're in trouble come midterms. Once again, I'm the broken record. Until we all figure out how to talk together and get in the same terminology, we don't need the left to defeat us because we defeat us. We defeat us because we split the minds of our own damn voters that we should be bringing together. They don't know who to believe or who to trust. They just choose who do they see on interviews the most, who squawks the most, who invokes Jesus the most, who looks the friendliest, who's the nicest, not the directest, because people hate the truth. If we don't get our stuff together and figure out how to work together and really nail down how this is done, everything you think you have that we got in this vote, because now we have a new president's gone in the midterm because they're going to lame duck them. But you also got to remember when they lame duck them, which will probably happen, then they're going to impeach him and all these executive orders go away. And that, sadly, folks, is our State of the Union. And they will tell you every time, just like I showed you Mr. Obama, they tell you right in the open how they do it, like Bernie did October 28, 2020, it's going to be mail-in ballots. But yet we went with, oh, it's the machines. And here we are. Thank you.
How do they reach you, Jovan, if they want to get a hold of you?
My email is the most hated asshole in the world in election integrity at Gmail. Just use my name. Don't believe the rumors. I'm very reachable. Jovan, Jovan, Hutton, Hutton, Pulitzer, Pulitzer, just like the prize, but I'm not. I'm the free parting gift at Gmail. But you can reach me. I'm here every day.
Can you put it in the chat for us?
I can.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on. We'll have you on again, of course. Thank you for all you do. Greg Stenstrom's coming on. Parallel election book, Patriots Online, one of the top guys on election security, many, many lawsuits. Come on down, Greg.
How do I look and how do I sound? I only have a picture about
Not
this
bad
big.
because you don't have a flag shirt on, but we can hear you.
I just came back. Got back from court this morning.
You
and
live in court.
Huh?
You live in court.
I live.
You live in court.
We live there. That's right. We've been living there, and we were in court this morning. But I was listening to Jovan, and I want to provide some continuity and link that to what we're doing. And I think I'm the second or third guest, right, today? Second guest. So what I want to, I want to give people new information, and what we're seeing across the country, and specifically in Pennsylvania and at our county level, is that there is a huge push to centralize or further centralized counting and tabulation of votes. So that is the value, that is the object that they value. And that could be, and I want to say the persons that are they are the uniparty. Does not necessarily mean just Democrats, but there's also some factions of Republicans, misguided, that don't understand that what has protected our vote and protected our country in elections is decentralized voting. Decentralized voting means going to your local church, your temple, the local garage, the Kiwanis Club, the local school, and having the local retirement home, and having 50 to 100 people, maybe a couple of hundred people that all know each other as a community. They all vote, and they can do that. They don't need a machine to do that. 50 to 100 people, 200 people even, they can fill out paper ballots, which is one of the subjects of President Trump's executive orders and some of the things that are trickling up through legislation. But what that protected our vote was we had 100 or 200 people voting. So they were able to tally those votes over the period of a day. And again, that's not that many votes. Even 1,000 votes for some of the bigger precincts. It's not too much to tabulate over the period of a day. Polls close at 8 p.m. Maybe it takes an hour or two afterwards to kind of argue. But I've got 5 people there. I've got a judge of elections. I've got a majority inspector, a minority inspector, a machine. If you're using election machines, I have a machine operator, and then I have, one other person. And those are basically local people being paid a small fee, anywhere from $150 to $200 for the day to run the election. And then that's where my certified poll watchers come in. I got Republican and Democrat poll watchers at these local precincts. And what it comes down to is, I'm going to give the numbers are astounding. In 2019, in Delaware County, which is about 500,000 people, we have 430,000 registered voters. We had over 3,500 people running the elections. And these are your friends. These are your neighbors. These are people that that you see on the streets, that you see in your local stores. Think of that number. All of those people are running an election for 430,000 voters. They're able to tabulate the results of the election, and they're able to call them in that night, one night, election's done. Well, what's happened is with with COVID was an excuse to implement centralized counting. And they focused, Giovanna gave a different number. I have 3,143 counties, but we're pretty close. I think he said 3,118. I have 3,143. But there's 3,143 counties across the United States. And all of them by putting in these centralized counting centers, they initially targeted only less than 30 in 2020. It only takes 20 to 30 counties to change the outcome of the US election. That was it. And the places they focused to put the centralized counting centers in 2020 under the guise of COVID were Delaware County, Pennsylvania, where I am, 500,000 voters, Maricopa County, Wayne County, Antrim County, Fulton County. You see a pattern here? All the hotbeds of election fraud, Philadelphia, where they had to putting up papers and they wouldn't let anybody come in, and they said, don't worry, we're going to count the vote back here where no one can see, and we'll let you know how it goes at the end of the night. Those specific counties flipped the United States. So what the object they value is they need to further centralize the vote. And in order to do that, they're trying to redistrict counties. In Delaware County, the case that we were in this morning was they want one person to tabulate the whole election. One person and 3 people from the Board of Elections. So the Director of Elections, James Allen in Delaware County, and then the Board of Elections, which is 3 members. So we're going to go from over 3,000 people who were able to get the election done in one day, and now we're going to have election month, election season, and we're going to let one person control the vote. Does that make any sense to anybody? So what we were fighting this morning was we were fighting that redistricting. They want to redistrict and collapse 104 precincts or districts out of 428. Their plan is to completely centralize Delaware County so that only one person counts the vote. It's like sending up smoke for the Pope. Black smoke, white smoke. One person decides, one person tabulates the vote. One person can hide the election records and so forth. That's the way they want to run it. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting centralized counting centers. Now, in addition to fighting the centralized counting centers, the other object they value is continuing to perpetuate election voting machines. The notion of too big to rig is, in my mind, ridiculous. I'm a computer scientist as well as a forensic computer scientist. And anything that can be put in a computer, I don't care if you put 10 counties, 10,000 or 100,000 counties. It's just a few more clicks on the CPU cycle, a little bit more memory, a little bit more disk. But the bottom line is nothing is too big to rig when it's run by a computer system that's vulnerable. Well, we have the evidence that the EAC has knowingly introduced vulnerable machines with known vulnerabilities and bugs, uncertified code, and malicious code, and they've allowed that to perpetuate through the entire country. Marley Hornick was on the other day. She did a good video, and she correctly stated that there's not a single election machine in the nation that's properly certified and in compliance with federal statutes. That's 52 USC. You can look up the sections yourself. Not a single machine in the United States is certified in accordance with federal law and federal statute. Not one.
Yep.
So the bottom line is we've been fighting that for 4 years. And, we've gotten hit for standing, jurisdiction, justiciability. We've learned all the tricks. So at this point, we're now winning in court, and we're winning pro se. We are winning our cases. And the only thing they have now to do is they can obstruct us from entering things in the docket. They can procedurally slow us down, but we're at a point where we've overcome. We know how to establish our standing, establish our jurisdiction, establish justiciability, enter evidence whether they like it or not. Because one of the things they've been doing is stopping people from entering evidence. We know how to do that now. We're winning. We're beating them. We're beating them in every state that we're working in. We're beating them in Pennsylvania. We're beating them in Nevada, California, Texas, Connecticut, Georgia. And it's not, and this is a wide variety of people that are working on this. To give you an example, Andy Thompson has got a case in Nevada where he's challenged the election and the election results for the 2024 election. we were able to successfully overcome the initial motions to dismiss, and he's now going forward with a hearing. And it's interesting, that case is specifically interesting, and the reason we're working on it, I'm working on it with him, is number one, he's got a nationally known mathematician, Ed Solomon, and they did a statistical analysis, and they said after the election, first 2 days, Trump was named the president. Got all these votes for President Trump. Well, 7 days later, 69,000 ballots show up, mail-in ballots, just show up.
2 minutes, Greg.
Fell off a truck. When they did the statistical analysis, 97% of the 69,000 ballots did not have a vote for president and did not name Trump or Kamala Harris. They were all for the undercard, and they flipped and took the congressional seats. So their plan is overall by 2026 is to cement the centralized counting centers, cement the uncertified machines, and cement their ability to centrally control the elections. We are fighting them at every level, county and state level, federal cases, multiple states. And what we've done over the last 4 years, while our opponents have been saying, well, you keep losing, it's 0 and 98. They are gloating too early. It's premature. What we've been doing is establishing the evidentiary base. We now have the proof of the misconduct. We have the names, we have the people. And what you're going to see over the next couple of months, just the next couple of months, and all the way through 2026, is we are going to be banging these people, and we're going to be correcting what has been done wrong. All of these disclosures, all of these cases have been submitted to government agencies, the DOJ, the FBI, the Inspector General, the House Judiciary Committee. All of this has been documented. We've taken every single case, every single criminal disclosure, and put it into the National Archive. The proof is undeniable that our elections have been stolen, and the people who stole them, we know who they are. All of the cases that they've said are dead and they won, they're mistaken. The vast majority of them are still alive.
1 minute. 1 minute. Greg.
Well, I'm rolling up. I think I wanted to give people encouragement, and that they to know that we're going after specific objects that they value to make sure that they can't cheat in 2025 and then in 2026. The last thing, we have a great case here, and it's with the 1 minute left that I have, we have a case, and his name is Charlie Alexander, and he was bumped off the ballot for a hyper technical reason. And when we first looked at it, he was running for county council, and they bumped him off. They knocked him off the ballot. Well, when we went in and we did a forensic analysis, what we found was they took 12 people off the ballot in Delaware County, and they took 42 people in Montgomery County, and it was unlawful. They essentially just rubber stamped the removal of these candidates. And the reason they do this is they need to shape the elections. They start stealing the elections by shaping the candidates. Well, we caught them with judicial misconduct, docket tampering, lawyer misconduct, all of which was submitted this morning. And what's going to happen is it requires, as a strict matter of law, a reversal by the Commonwealth Court to put all of these candidates, people running for school board and running for different places that want to provide honest public service, they're going to be restored to the ballot. That's what we've asked for as a precedentiary opinion. So we're fighting at every level here. You can reach me at patriot.online, www.patriot.online, not .com, not .net, patriot.online. You'll find that's our social media platform. I'm on Twitter, at Greg Stenstrom, and I've become more active in that. For people here that are on my Facebook friends, I don't take that many of them, but you can find me on Facebook when I publish public statements. And lastly, the book The Parallel Election is still very valid. The subtitle is A Blueprint for Deception. We tell you how, why they're doing it, and we show exactly how they were cheated in 2020. Now they've gotten more sophisticated, but if you want to see the pattern and learn about how they commit election fraud, that's your book. You can buy that at parallelelection.com. You can buy it on Amazon, the Parallel Election. I think it's a little less on Amazon than it is on the site, but parallelelection.com. You support us in our fight for election integrity. And Steve, I love your show, love the platform, love the guests. I just got off the phone with Linda Sinkowitz. I think she's coming on later. She slotted in too, and we both were running to get on the show. I can't thank you and Raj enough. Next time I'll be wearing my shirt. And I also thank all of the people that tune in here and listen and learn. And I want to encourage you that in the end, we're going to win, and we're going to, President Trump is fulfilling his campaign promises. And this is a great time. We're going to see great changes over the next 2 years. And I want people to stay enthusiastic and hopeful. And I want everybody to pray.
Thank you very much. I want to thank a couple of people that are streaming this, totalnews.com. We have a new guy, Mike Schwartz, Two Mikes podcast, and our greatest guy, Dan Smiglio, Voice of the People, gets tons of people from all over the world. Our next guest, we're happy to have him, Jim Womack. He's the chairman of the North Carolina Lee County. He is a top election security guy, works with Cleta Mitchell. I believe he graduated from West Point, if I'm not mistaken. So come on down. Jim Womack.
And right as Jim is coming on, Jim Womack is coming on. A couple of announcements here as well. Again, please go to the flagshirt.us, .com, flagshirt.com. In addition to that, coming up on this call later on today, you will be getting an update on Tina Peters. She has been moved. Her jail she's moved from one jail to another jail, so you'll be seeing her very shortly. And in addition to that, you'll be getting an update from Florida as people here are trying to use Trump's executive order to double the amount of mechanized systems in the state of Florida. So that's coming up. But thank you for waiting. Jim is now up. Go ahead, Jim, you're up.
Raj, thanks, Steve. I've got my obligatory shirt on. I own about 20 of these, so, the one for the day today. Hey, look, it's great to be on, and I appreciate the opinions that we've heard from Jovan and from Steve before, and I'm going to give a little bit of a different presentation today. I want to really amplify what was in President Trump's executive order and the implications for the country, particularly the states, and their implementation, because we all know that time, locations, and manner of elections are the province of the states, and therefore it's really much of the federal law and the NVRA and the HAVA public laws are set up to empower the states to be capable of running free and fair elections. And we know that there's vulnerabilities that are created when you allow the 50 states to roll their own in conducting an election. And there's an absence, in general, of federal standards across the board. And this is one of the focuses that we've had in the election integrity team in North Carolina, is to identify where those vulnerabilities are, where those voids are in federal standards and in state standards, and trying to close those gaps, reduce the vulnerabilities. There's another guy on the call today named Barry Chapman. I'm gonna give him a shout out because Barry's done some magnificent work. Steve, you should have him on and have you walk through it one time. He's completely decomposed the election process into its constituent elements, some 600 or 700 constituent elements. And Barry's spreadsheet tracks all the vulnerabilities, the risk vectors that could impact an election. And machines and technology is one of the 8 lanes of election integrity that we refer to that have risk vectors, and those can be mitigated to a large extent. But if you lock down or you eliminate the machines, you still have 7 other lanes of election integrity in which cheating can occur or risk can occur of corruption of the election. And so it's not sufficient just to eliminate machines. And in fact, I would argue that you're never going to eliminate the machines, that there's always, it's like saying you're going to get rid of personal handheld calculators. It's just not going to happen. It's going to get more and more automated, more and more streamlined over time. And I think the Trump executive order which is what I'm going to get around to, really kind of amplifies that the fact that we are concerned about the vulnerabilities of the machines. And finally, the Congress is waking up and the president has awoken. And I think what we're going to do is try to attack the machine vulnerabilities in a very deliberate way. And the executive order 14248 actually does that. So I'm going to walk through a few of those features here and identify, what still needs to be done and what has been attacked, recognizing again the time, locations, and manner of the election are the province of the states. There are some things you can do at the federal level, which can certainly guide or compel the states to get in compliance. So let me start with that. The thrust of this EO itself is on citizenship verification, the elimination of counting ballots and accepting ballots after Election Day, mandating that there will be a paper-based, hand-marked, voter-verifiable ballot for every voter, which is really important. More rigorous maintenance for the voter rolls across the country. We all know that the voter rolls create the opportunity for fraud, and by being more rigorous in our maintenance of those voter rolls, we can head a lot of that off. Federally supported database cross-checking. This is something that we've never seen at the federal level, and now that Trump has their undivided attention as president, he can actually compel the Social Security Administration, DHS, and others to cooperate with the states, not just make it accessible to the states, but actually assist the states in doing the cross-checking they need to verify citizenship and to eliminate duplicate voters. Condition, the next big on compliance with the emerging voluntary voter system guidelines from the EAC. And I think this is really important because in the past, there's lots of grant money that's passed down to the states for all kinds of nefarious purposes. The EAC was dutifully following what Congress appropriated, and that money was spent. There's going to be an audit of that money now. States like California that were misusing that money for purposes like tracking down misinformation and that sort of silliness, that's going to be coming forward on an audit. But conditioning federal funding on future machine purchases, I think, is really important. That you got to get in compliance with federal law, or I should say federal guidelines, if you want to get any federal money. The last one is DOJ enforcement. In the past, DOJ has actually been on the other side of the fence. They've been prosecuting or suppressing the ability for us to crack down on voter fraud. And now they're going to be actively in the game of identifying and prosecuting voter fraud. So I think those are the two big things that the federal government can do is conditioning funding and on enforcement from DOJ. And both of those are present in this executive order. So let me dive into a few specifics real quick. Voter registration. Now, the federal postcard application, the registration forms on the national level will require proof of citizenship. And you have to document how your citizenship was proven, whether it's by passport or other forms. And the states will now record and retain that information about citizenship proving. The agencies that are offering voter registration must verify citizenship. And this is something we've tried to do in North Carolina for many years. Get the DMV to verify citizenship before they even offer a form for registration to vote. And unfortunately, that's not the way the process works in the DMVs around the country. But under this rule, under this executive order, now agencies have to offer voter registration only after they've gone through a citizenship verification process, which is really good. That'll stop a lot of the illegals from being registered. Under voter list maintenance, the DHS, the Social Security Administration, other federal agencies now have to make their records, their databases accessible, either through an application programming interface or other form, so that the states can do an instant lookup or an asynchronous message to identify how or whether a person is who they say they are and that they're properly a citizen. They will audit the state voter rolls. This is really interesting. I'm not sure how DOJ and DHS are going to perform audits, but they're going to audit the voter rolls, and they got the power to use subpoenas if necessary to audit the state voter rolls. Now, I'm not so sure that they're going to actually be able to do that effectively. I think the states need to have independent audits conducted, but it's interesting to see how they're going to take that on. And then states are going to be that fail to comply with list maintenance face loss of federal election funds. I think, again, conditioning funding on compliance is really important. The voting systems. This is where we're at a little bit of a disagreement, I think, with some of the other participants in this call. I'm not an anti-voting systems person. I believe that automation is good. Automation can be used effectively. And I think you have to eliminate the risk vectors and follow full FSMA compliance, FSMA and NIST standards compliance in order to secure our systems. I mean, you're not going to stop using election or automation in banking. You're not going to stop using automation in law enforcement. You're not going to stop using automation in elections. And now what you can do is you can certainly tighten up the rules on the certification of machines and decertify. I think that's the first time we've heard that authority being granted to EAC, but they've been ordered within 180 days to decertify machines that don't follow the 2.0 or later standards. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that is. We will not have a single machine in the country as of 6 months from now. Not one machine in the country will be certified if they follow through on this order. That means that all systems now will be vulnerable. Some states that have rules like Ohio, and Marcell can talk about this in a little bit. Ohio has a rule that says you have to be certified under the latest standard. That's going to be real interesting because Ohio now won't have a single machine that's authorized. So that'll be interesting to see how their Secretary of State deals with that. So, but anyhow, voter verifiable paper ballots are to be used, and except in those cases where DREs may be permitted is when there's barcodes, or I'm sorry, where there's a disabled person that's voting and needs a machine that's ADA compliant. And therefore you might be able to have barcodes or QR codes in those cases. But other than that, your mainstream voters will not be able to use those kinds of machines. They will have to be using a machine that has a voter verifiable paper-based ballot, hopefully that's watermarked. Mail-in and absentee voting, all must be received now by Election Day. And that, by the way, does include UOCAVA. That does include the overseas ballots. They will have to be back in, depending upon what the state requires, by the close of the polls or by midnight or whatever on Election Day. They all have to be in by Election Day, and so that's really important. Now there won't be any post-Election Day capture of ballots that could swing an election. Next item is mail-in and absentee voting. The states must comply with this uniformly, using all voting methods. That means that there's no exceptions to be made on mail-in and absentee votes, all in by Election Day. UOCAVA, the Uniformed and Overseas Civilians Absentee Voting Act, is going to be substantially impacted because the Secretary of Defense now has to update the federal postcard application. All the states that were allowing electronic voting have to have those in by Election Day instead of like they do in North Carolina, which is 10 days after the election. Proof of eligibility now has to be proven. So if you're going to be an overseas voter, now you have to be able to prove that you not only are you a U.S. citizen, but you also have to prove you have eligibility to vote in that state, and which is a two-pronged eligibility requirement. Really important. And I think, this is one of the things the federal government can impose under UOCAVA and will impose. And I think the Congress will support that.
2 minutes.
Okay. Section 6 is under enforcement and federal oversight. All right. So this is, as I said before, the DOJ, DHS, FEMA, and others are now being sanctioning authorities over funding and enforcement. So they can compel compliance or revoke all funding. And the last thing is the Election Assistance Commission. We have a number of things. The voluntary voter system guidelines, which are truly voluntary by the states. If the states don't want to comply with that, that's their discretion. But they will also not get federal funding in the future for election machines. And typically in a given year, there's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 to $120 million worth of machines that can be purchased. And there's about $2 billion worth of machines that are out there in the environment. Replacing all those machines is going to be a necessity. If the states want to be compliant with critical infrastructure requirements as outlined under FSMA, the Federal Information Security Management Act, if they want to be compliant, they're going to have to be, and this is, by the way, an Obama executive order that labeled election systems as requiring full FSMA compliance. Okay, it's critical infrastructure. Therefore, they have to meet those compliance standards. If they don't meet them, they're not going to get federal funding, and the feds are not going to fund systems that aren't 2.0 or later certified. So that's going to be really important. It's cybersecurity at its best. And the last thing I would say is all these things are going to be under the watchful eye of the Attorney General, DOJ. They're going to definitely be watching and enforcing compliance where they have the authority. It's up to the states, though, in the end, to implement both the technology and the statutory guidelines necessary to implement the full reach of the executive order. But it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you very much, Jim. Now we're going to have Colonel Conrad Reynolds CEO of AVII.
Great. Thank you for having me on. I'm sorry I didn't get to hear everything that he just said, but what I did hear, I liked. It was very, very accurate. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Conrad Reynolds. I work with Will Huff. He and I work together. We've been up in D.C. since the 1st of February working on the president's agenda, trying to get this executive order done and trying to help them with some of the key points that are in that. Additionally, we've been working on trying to get a law, which we call MESA, which is Make Elections Secure Again Act. We've been trying to get that brokered, and we got a sponsor, Congressman Pete Sessions out of Texas, the 17th District. And we've been working with his staff. In fact, that's what I'm here at today at this moment. I took a break to come out to make this call. We're working on the key elements of that law that will help codify the things that were in the executive order. There's a lot of things that are going on in the background, I can assure you, but ultimately we don't want machines. We want machines out for the most part, and we think you're right. The federal funding issue is the big one. Even under DOGE, they can cut the federal funding for most of these machines. And I'm from the state of Arkansas, where we have ballot marking devices for everybody. That is a problem. We do not want machines marking our ballot for us. We need a hand marked paper ballot. All the computer scientists that I've interviewed and cybersecurity experts all agree that the gold standard is a hand marked paper ballot that is eventually hand counted. Some say you can go to a machine to count them on election night and as an unofficial count. But then that's followed by a hand count. And that is important. In fact, you can't even do a risk limiting audit unless you have a hand marked paper ballot. The guy that invented that, Philip Stark out of University of California, Berkeley, I've had him on my show many times. We've talked at length, and he was adamant that these ballot marking devices you cannot trust. You never know if that is the intent of the voter, and you have to get rid of the machines in order to do that. The problem that we have, even in a red state like Arkansas, is that 63% of the people do not trust these machines and they want a hand marked paper ballot. But 99% of our legislature, to include our governor, all support the machines. They will not bend. They have fought us tooth and nail all the way. So I conveyed to President Trump in early March, well, actually late in February, that there's a problem. And the problem is that we cannot, at the state level, overcome the problems that we have at the state level, because it seems like the voting machine companies have our legislature captured, and they're not willing to go the next step and get rid of these machines. So it has to be at the federal level. And at the federal level, then you run into issues with states' rights, states determine time, place, and manner. So there's a lot of issues here that have to be resolved. And the bill that currently we're working on, called the MESA bill, is trying to address all of those issues. And it's pretty complicated. But if we get through this and we're able to get this bill done, we're hoping to have it ready and to be voted on probably by June. That's what we're hoping, because that would give the states enough time to be able to reconfigure and go to paper ballots. And I think the funding issue is the big deal. What we're trying to say is with funding, if you say that we will support hand marked paper ballots and we'll fund that, we're not funding any of these machines. We think that's important. The other thing is that, yes, the handicap, the American with Disabilities Act, they have a lot of power in Washington, D.C., and we understand that, they're going to be pushing for some of these machines. The problem is that under HAVA, it says a system, and most of the states interpret that to say, oh, that means I've got to have a voting machine, a voting computer. That's not true. They can have other systems out there. There are other systems that allow that. You can have a confessional type system. You can have a family member. So we want the states to be able to know that they can use these, particularly the smaller counties where they virtually have nobody that uses these handicap machines, but they have to pay for the programming and the maintenance of these machines, very expensive, when they shouldn't have to do that. So we're working hard to try to make that happen. And that's what I've been doing in D.C. for about 6 weeks. And we think we've got a good handle on it. as best we can. But I will tell you, there is a lot of pushback, even from some of the Congress people, men and women that you would think are really strong on this. I can tell you that I talked to some of them, and when you get them one-on-one, they're not nearly as vocal as they are when they're in front of a TV or in front of a microphone. They'll tell you these machine companies have a lot of power in DC. And I said, well, that's the reason you have to do this. That's why we have to defund them if we can. So the executive order that President Trump put out really gives us a lot of tools to go after these machines. And I wish I could talk about more. I will tell you that there are more things that are coming down the pike. I can assure you that. And probably the next couple of months, I believe that there will be evidence that will be presented, that people will have an opportunity to be vindicated when they talk about the vulnerability of these machines cannot be trusted. Yes, technology is a wonderful thing. And I agree with people who say, hey, we need technology in a lot of aspects of our life. That is true. But every cybersecurity expert I've spoken with, to include the computer scientists out of Harvard, out of Princeton, will tell you, you cannot trust the voting machines. And I don't. And therefore, we're going to try to get rid of them. I wish I had more to say, but that's about all I've got for right now.
We'll have you on again as soon as you get more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming down. Next up is Dan Schultz, my good friend, Precinct Strategy. I've been working with him for 4 years. He's the one responsible for getting me on Steve Bannon. And he has a book, which everybody should get. I don't know if you can put me on that, Raj. www.precinctstrategy.com. Go to it. I can see the book. I'm sure Dan will talk about it. So come on down, Dan. You there?
Dan, go ahead and unmute. Dan, if you could unmute.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen and we can hear you. Go ahead, Dan.
And I'm not going to mention my book. Let's see here. I got to do the, let me know if you can see it full screen.
We can.
Thank you. Okay, so how are we going to get rid of these machines? The how is we, the people. We have to elect real Republican state legislators. And why do we have to focus on the people, we, the people, and the state legislators? Because of the Constitution. That's where the solution is. How do we get real Republicans who will get rid of the machines? Not one state has gotten rid of the machines since 2016. Why is that? I'll tell you why in a second here. What are our obstacles? Well, we don't have enough conservatives that are getting organized and united politically, where and how that matters. I'm going to tell you where that is. We don't have enough conservatives in the Republican Party local committees, and we're not communicating very well. So under our Constitution, there's only one group of people who can get rid of the black box software tabulators. You know who that is? It's not the courts, because they don't have any legislative power. See Article 1 of the Constitution. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested in a constitution. There's a parallel article in the state constitutions. The U.S. House and Senate, per the Constitution, don't have any authority over the state elections. That's Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, which I'll show you in a minute. The president can't do it. He doesn't have any legislative power. The executive power shall be vested in a president. He doesn't have any authority to pass laws, and he's not a court. So there's two related judicial power doctrines that prevent courts from deciding these political questions about the machines and the use of the machines. First, the separation of powers doctrine. Courts should not and cannot exercise legislative Article 1 powers nor executive Article 2 powers. Second, the political question doctrine. Courts should not and ought not decide political questions where the people themselves could provide the solution. We, the people, can fix this if we elect better state legislators, and the courts know it. And that's why they can't issue a ruling saying you can't use machines, because we elect representatives to do our work for us in government. And what are they doing? They're continuing to use the machines. And there's a reason for that. They're not afraid of us. And I'll get to that. U.S. Congress has no power over the conduct of the elections. Federal legislation cannot ban the use of black box software tabulators, period. So because of these two related constitutional law doctrines, separation of powers doctrine, the political question doctrine, courts aren't going to fix this for us. But we can fix it ourselves by electing better state legislators. Courts are a co-equal branch of the three-branch system of separated powers. Getting rid of these black box software tabulators, again, is a political issue. We, the people who ordained and established our Constitution, can get rid ourselves of these tabulators politically via elections. And the judges know this. That's why they won't weigh in on this stuff. They'll figure out some way, say there isn't jurisdiction or you don't have standing or whatever, but it's really a political question, doctrine issue. We, the people, have to elect real Republicans who will exercise their political power to return us to real elections without black box software tabulators. Where are all the conservatives? Well, here's why only state legislators can change state election laws, because it's right in the Constitution. Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1 says that it's been mentioned already by some of the others. The times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by not courts, not the president, not the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, by the state legislature thereof. Donald Trump understands this. He put out this tweet way before the election, calling on the governors to try to get this all fixed. Did they? They didn't listen to him. Why not? Well, they're not afraid of Donald Trump. We have 22 states that have a Republican, quote unquote, Republican trifecta, a Republican governor and both state legislative chambers that are in the hands of Republicans. Florida is an example. Texas is an example. Why haven't they gotten rid of the machines? 2 states, Arizona and Wisconsin, have the state legislature in Republican hands, both chambers. Why haven't they gotten rid of the machines for the federal elections? Why haven't they got rid of them? I'll tell you why. They're not afraid of us. And why should they be? Half of the precinct committeeman slots are vacant still on average. They know conservatives have utterly failed to get organized and politically in the best way, at the best places, and at the best times. And where is that? It's at their respective, your respective local Republican committee meetings. Prove me wrong. So what do American Firsters have to do? We have to take over the Republican Party. It's there for the taking. Over half of these precinct level slots are just sitting there. They're volunteer positions. It doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of your time. We have to fill them all up as soon as possible and then elect real Republicans. No? So what's the goal? We got to get to hand counted paper ballots, no machines, mail ballots only for military and invalids, small precincts, one-day election, and of course, you got to have an ID. How do you get there? Work backwards from that goal. We have to have America First state legislators and governors. How do you get that? Well, they got to win the primary and then they got to win the general election. We have to have America First winners of primaries and generals. Go to the left. How are we going to make that happen? You got to have much greater turnouts, not 60% like we just had in Wisconsin yesterday or the day before. Only 60% turned out. Where were all the Republicans? I don't know where they were, but they didn't turn out. Every Republican Party precinct committeeman slot has to get filled by a volunteer American Firster. And then we have to learn how to get turnout happen. And you can go to my site, precinctstrategy.com, go to the how-to videos page, and I've got a video that explains how to do it. This hasn't changed since 2008. 2007 is when I became a PC here in I'm in Arizona right now, but I'm going back to Wisconsin shortly. This hasn't changed. We have a half-strength party fighting amongst moderates and conservatives, ideologically split, no ground game, no message. Why? Why can't we have it like this, where we get 75% of the slots filled by conservatives? Why can't we? I'll tell you why. Because conservatives don't seem interested in it. The establishment Republican members of the Uniparty hope you will continue to stay out of their party, and they are not going to recruit you. And why don't all the people who ought to be recruiting you recruit? Incumbent office holders, they just love everything to stay just the same. Once they get in office, even if they're conservative, they're not going to recruit PCs. Conservative candidates generally fear that they might recruit to become PCs might turn on them and help somebody else. The RNC and state party officers, they don't want more PCs because they want to stay in their positions. Everybody will ask for your time and your money and your sweat, but they won't recruit you to become a PC or ask you to become a ball player in the real ball game of politics. So I don't blame them for that. I don't get mad about it. I try to get even. That's why I try to recruit precinct committeemen, so we can take over this party, so we can save our republic. The key is America first. Americans have to take over the Republican Party as an organizational tool for achieving their political goals, period. And we have failed to do that. The numbers don't lie. Over half of these slots still are vacant. Again, see the difference? Half strength, ideologically split party, full strength, 75% voting majority. Why can't we make that happen? This is another depiction of the power vacuum. 200,000 vacancies, 100,000 others, 100,000 Trump PCs. And then when you elect local committee officers, county committee officers, state committee officers, national committee officers, you get a mishmash. See what it could be if we filled up those 200,000 vacancies? Every committee, local, county, state, and national committee would be filled with America Firsters running the party, not the moderates that are doing it now. Again, see the difference? So where are we going to get them? 74 million voted for Trump in 2020. 77 million did in 2024. Why can't we get 0.3% of those numbers to become the 200,000 that we need? I don't. But he doesn't recruit, unfortunately. Somebody's telling him not to do it. So we got to do it ourselves. The missing ingredient to saving the republic by getting rid of these machines, by changing the state legislatures, is the precinct committeeman strategy. Conservatives like you and me, we've all got to become recruiting machines. So this is my 3-step strategy to restore America. Step 1, pray. I recommend 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. I think enough people prayed that in 2024 to get Donald Trump back into the White House. Now we have to fill up the vacancies and Trumplify the party for him so that the midterms are not a debacle. And then we repeat steps 1 and 2. Pray, recruit precinct committeemen, repeat. Everybody on this call ought to be one. And if you can't be, then become a recruiter. And this is how you can contact me, Dan@precinctstrategy.com. My site is precinctstrategy.com. I did this PowerPoint in my podcast today. I pre-recorded it before this call. It'll air at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you want to watch it, go to precinctstrategy.com at 6 p.m. Eastern, and then click on the third button that takes you to my Rumble account, Cold Warrior 1978, Cold Warrior 1978, and watch the podcast. If you want this PowerPoint, let me know. I'll send it to you, Dan@precinctstrategy.com. I'm out. Thanks.
Very much, Dan. Now we have Gary Meyers, who has the Meyers Roundtable Report. A tremendous guy. I just met him about 6 months ago, and he has lots of information. Gary, you there?
Gary is getting ready. Okay, great. Gary, you're there? Go ahead, Gary.
Yes, I am.
See you. We can
Can
see
you
you. Go
see
ahead,
me?
Gary.
Okay.
Yes, you look great.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Steve. I think Steve wanted me on here in part to put a perspective, because if you listen to some of the people on this call, you may want to slit your wrists, but I don't think that is the case at all. The Election Integrity Network is a real movement, and it's not alone. It's part of a major cultural shift that's impacting the United States and is actually starting to affect the rest of the world. It's just that when you're looking at just election integrity, you may think that you're alone, and we're not at all. And Steve asked me to explain this different perspective, which is more all-encompassing. We've been running a very private think tank for 43 years, which began its focus on economics. Today, our group has 150 people in the United States and abroad, and our experts are not academicians. They are real people who were at particular events or participated in, or they did the original research that everyone else talks about. We cover a raft of including election integrity, and some of our members and forecasters are on this platform today. Historically, we've been making forecasts on different subjects, including election outcomes, election integrity efforts, economic, science, geopolitical events, and trends. Our latest set of forecasts, 172 in number, were made in October, November, and December of last year. The subjects included President Trump winning the electoral vote, which I didn't think was that hard, but also the popular vote when the betting odds had that at 37%. We also forecast commodity prices, restrictions on foreign ownership of U.S. land, the timing of when the southern border would be shut down, the first Israeli-Hamas exchanges, and we're talking about almost to the day, the upcoming ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, U.S. mortgage rates, Fed policy, and a lot more. The point is, we made these forecasts on the efforts of the Election Integrity Network because we think that victory is coming. It's still going to be a battle, but it's coming. And by the way, of the 172 forecasts that we made, 77 are measurable, and so far we're 76 right and 1 wrong, with 95 to be determined. That's a 98.7 accuracy rate. If anyone wants the forecast, I'm just going to send out the email address right now. In any case, we see the Election Integrity Network is winning. As I said, it's a movement, and I think you all know that. However, when the dark days are coming, or when we go through them, you got to look at other things to see the overall trend that's impacting the nation. You all know that we are a movement, but in addition, the massive culture change that's affecting every place. Think of it this way. The emperor has new clothes. In addition to election fraud being taken seriously, climate change fraud is being debunked. Vaccine mandates, the COVID vaccines are being shown as being dangerous, and the vaccine mandates are being lifted. Stop illegal immigration. The UK Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, just last week called for a meeting of 40 nations to try and figure out how to stop it. People everywhere are rejecting lawfare against political opponents, and everyone is with people are being sued. And we all know this. If you disagree with the establishment, but now the complaints and the demonstrations are coming in the UK, France, Germany, Romania, many other places. Everywhere also, there seems to be a growth of spirituality and religiousness. This is not a small thing, because very simply, believe in God, don't believe in God. When we live by the 10 commandments, things are better. Wokeness is being rejected. Gaslighting of the acceptability of transgender ideology is being rejected because it doesn't work, even in a practical sense. There are attractive single women out there who are professionals and are achieving in the Gen X and millennial era periods of groups, and they're having problems finding guys to date because the woke soy boys don't make good mates, they don't make good partners, and they don't make protectors of family. You can blame that on the war on boys and the theories of toxic masculinity. This is just one of the many things that have been going on that have been attacking the basic structure of our society, including the basic family unit. However, there's hope coming. Generation Z, teens in their late teens and mid 20s are adopting a more conventional attitude toward many things. They have a more conventional attitude toward marriage, casual sex, and voting. They are becoming conservative. They are supporting free speech. They are becoming more religious. They are voting conservative. They are getting married and want to have children, where their predecessors in Gen X and millennials were questioning whether or not they should bring children into the world. The bottom line for elections is this. By the time the midterms come around, the economy will be recovering. It'll be recovering nicely, and we will win unless we screw it up. However, it's going to work. The economy will be there. Trump is doing a tremendous job. And don't forget those immortal words. It's the economy, stupid, and we're going to win it. Thank you.
Now we're going to have somebody from Pima County on, because we always talk about Maricopa County. We haven't talked about Pima, so we're going to bring on Tim Lau, who's a retired database person and a veteran who took the oath to defend the Constitution, and that's what he's going to do. Come on down, Tim. Glad to have you.
That's right, Steve. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. Yeah, we have a lot of problems down here in Pima, and I'm frankly a little sick and tired of hearing about Maricopa County. They got all the money, the attorneys. Nobody ever hears about Pima County, and we did analysis of chain of custody documents and data for the 22 election cycle. Last year, during the primary, we presented a lot of that evidence to the Board of Supervisors here, and strangely enough, the county recorder must have been listening, because they changed their chain of custody documents. And interestingly enough, they actually gave us more information and more ammo. So for example, we had for the general election in the 24 cycle, we had 44 site issued ballot boxes that were held overnight. We had 22 mail drop boxes that were held overnight. We had one courier I call Speedy. He picked up 5 boxes from the downtown recorder's office with time starting from 9:24 in the morning to 9:54 in the morning. And then he went out to the east side location recorder's office and picked up 4 more ballot boxes starting at 10:01, which means he went about, I would say 15 miles at 10 o'clock in the morning in 4 minutes. Now, that's only part of the problem. There were 9 boxes total. 3 of them had exactly 150 ballots. 3 boxes had exactly 200 ballots, and 1 box had exactly 300 ballots. But, you know, this is Pima County. There's nothing to see here. This is a communist stronghold down here. The mayor of Tucson is part of the Communist Party USA. Raul Grijalva, who just passed away, member of the Communist Party USA. His daughter, who just resigned from the Board of Supervisors to run for his seat, is a member of the Communist Party USA. Kirsten Sinema as well. So we just have these kinds of problems. So the county recorder, we have 15 counties in Arizona. Pima is the only one that will not allow political observers at early vote locations. I wonder why that is. As far as UOCAVA goes, there's no sanctity in that. There's, you know, when people are allowed to email their ballots in, anyone can that receives these can see who it is. So you've got a ballot there. We talked with one individual who actually did the transcribing of these so that they could be tabulated. He said the majority of those ballots came in as Democrat, voting for Democrat, which doesn't seem right. And and also with UOCAVA, the county recorder stated that 2,741 UOCAVA ballots were mailed out, but for some strange reason, we received 4,682 ballots. And 1,728 of those were received after the election day. My understanding is they weren't supposed to be counted. And our voter rolls, we have a real problem with that. And this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. I don't know how it is in other states, but 13 of the 15 counties use the Secretary of State's database for the purpose of elections. 2 counties, Maricopa and Pima, have proprietary databases. I have a copy of the Secretary of State's database. It's a little old, but I went back to the data during that time. There are records on the Secretary of State's database that aren't on Pima. There are records on Pima that aren't on the Secretary of State's database. So when it comes to cleaning the voter rolls, it's actually an impossibility in Arizona from my point of view. Voter rolls, we've got over 150,000 people on the voter rolls that have absolutely no vote history whatsoever. And this is just it's just a real problem. In response to, let's see, Steve Schultz, he had talked about the Arizona legislature is yes, both Senate and the House are Republican. Any election integrity bill that is pushed through that's going to be good for the state of Arizona is going to get vetoed by her. She's already vetoed a ton of them. And that's only part of the problem. A good majority of the legislators up there are rhinos. We've got this big uniparty here in Arizona, and as well as other states. So, you know, that's just the problem. And I apologize, I'm not in uniform today. I don't have a flag shirt. But the point is, with regard to Pima County itself, it wasn't just Republicans that were disenfranchised in the 24 election cycle, and I dare say previous election cycles to that. We have people, Democrats, that were disenfranchised as well. So this isn't a Republican issue here. It's a Pima County issue that covers both parties. And as far as the county recorder, again, they have their tentacles everywhere. Fraternities, sororities, rehab locations, shelters. My wife and I bought a car last year. We were in the finance office. This is Precision Toyota. I'll go ahead and call them out. During that process, we were asked, are you registered to vote? And I said, well, that's none of your business, but no, yes, we are registered to vote. Why? And he said, well, because I can register you here to vote. Go to DMV and then passed up through, all the way up to Maricopa and then back down to Pima through one of their feeds? Or is it a straight API into our local Oracle database here? I really don't know. The point is they should not be doing that sort of thing. It's not their job to do that. And that's pretty much everything that I have. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I'm sorry, I do have the biggest thing. We published a 54-page doom and gloom report, as I call it. We went around to, my partner and I went around to all of the legislative district meetings, and we did our dog and pony show, and we were asking signatures for support. So what we did was we made 3 copies of that report. We took the original signatures, made 2 more copies of it. We sent a copy to President Trump, a copy to Pam Bondi, and a copy to Kash Patel. We need help in Pima County. We never get any help. This is low-hanging fruit here. What the things that we found, they're so easy to go after, and I just don't understand why we never ever get any help. So we thought, since President Trump has said we catch you cheating, we're going to come after you. I hope we can hold him to his word. But if anybody has any suggestions, we have no money down here. We have no attorneys willing to prosecute this. We need to go after our county recorder. She's just she's bad news. Thank you.
Tim.
I have a comment. Since my name was mentioned, it's actually Dan Schultz, not Steve Schultz.
I'm sorry.
That's
Dan
okay.
Schultz.
That's okay. I have a cousin named Steve Schultz. With respect to the federal elections, read Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1 of the Constitution. With respect to the federal elections for the House and the Senate, the state legislators do not need a governor's signature. They have plenary power over the conduct, the times, the places, and manner of the federal elections. Parallel to the state elections, they could get rid of the machines if they wanted to. Why don't they do what of conservatives in Arizona?
Thanks very much.
Okay, Dan.
Thanks.
We got to move
You're
on.
welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, put retired Air Force.
Will do. Thank you.
Everybody heard. And we also heard solutions for this, as much as we want it to be in Congress, as much as we want it to be through an executive order, are going to come down to our actions, our organization at the state level. To that end, I've been involved for the last 2 years in Ohio Central Committee, for example, this executive order, or even driving concerned citizen letters to the Secretary of State to have to answer, Dan pointed out. And no matter what you think or do, you have to certainly feel the temperature of the legislature. Most of these folks are going to use the Overton window, which is they're going to try to assess whether it's politically tenable for them to do it. Until we get a Secretary of State in 2026 that is thinking like this, that is thinking mission purpose and not personality or ambition, this is going to continue to happen in our state, any other state. So what we're looking at, just to set the threat landscape, because I am an intel officer, you have 20 years of inattentiveness, lack of public regard for security controls of those voting machines. You can, and we did attempt to put legislation that would have created a critical infrastructure standard. That is a approach, and I'm happy to share any of that with others who would be in the position to actually advocate for that, legislatively speaking. And that kind of puts the legislators in a bind, because if they truly don't support critical infrastructure, then what does that have to say ultimately with regards to their focus and purpose? I think in the states for voter ID verification, in Ohio, we exempted mail-in ballots from being copies, of course, the executive order, and we're driving hard to close that loophole whereby 1 million Ohio voters are voting without a copy of photo ID. So I think we're making progress on that front. We'll see some legislation. From a legislative perspective, is the voter registration laws, the weak eligibility review standards. Fortunately, we just got hearing agreements that are going to be coming. There's going to be a push for the first time. We're going from a combative federal government to a cooperative federal government at the state level. And that's going to offer opportunities. So where we're trying to capitalize on that in Ohio is we're trying to pay nation systems access, which is equivalent to what our state election official has. I know earlier they talked about decentralizing election operations. Well, we're trying to keep it in that way. For counties have the ability to verify for eligibility. I think if we could get that access going, they would be benefactors to it. Another thing we're going to be pushing out in Ohio pretty soon, and other states just did this in Wyoming, citizenship. Again, this is all going to be comments. Now you need to codify it into law. So it's like a multi-layer approach. So that particular aspect is going to give us the opportunity to assess, ideally, every single voter record that got on in the first place. I think you all were aware, many of you who follow this topic, this week DOJ indicated the method by which many of our states, because of laws put forward in 1993, can register with the last ordinance if asylum seekers were given permits, and then using those permitted Social Security issued numbers have applied to vote. And so the Social Security Administration, the commissioner there, are doing those checks, and we show about a 19% 2024 under a program of them came to the loophole. So ultimately, as we put this all together, you've just got to get a sense, going through a lot of information there. As much as everybody says, let's get to no early voting, same day voting, no excuse, no mail-in ballots whatsoever, there is no uniform leap here that's going to happen realistically. You have to assess exactly. My state is a no excuse absentee ballot. The Republicans did that. They put a no excuse absentee ballot. They put online registration that doesn't require identity proofing. right? So go online, register somebody in Ohio, and then what'll happen ultimately is if the information matches correctly to a Bureau of Motor Vehicles, they're in. And then we have third-party voter registration groups. Don't lose the dime on go out and canvass again in the effort to try to prove to somebody that they are so out of this over the course of time. What I'm trying to do and what answers that equation. We're trying to say, if you want voter convenience and accessible, you need the ability to first verify effectively for eligibility, and you need the appropriate security controls. And when you have that, trying to do is we're trying to rebalance the two sides of the coin here, which is what I think election integrity is about. You have to see it, the full spectrum. That's what they taught us in the military. You have to see the landscape of it all. So Congress, of course, has 3 legislative bills. Got the SAVE Act, which will eventually be voted on, which will enhance proof of citizenship and verification, which will afford the states more of an opportunity to talk about, from Arkansas, talk about the Make Elections Secure Act again. I would say that one is pushing for less mail-in ballots, same day, and restore. So something more traditional, what we experienced prior to 2000. And then you have one that was released today from the chairman of the Election Integrity Committee in Congress, Claudia Tenney, and in Arizona's Abe Hamadeh, which is HR 2499. And what they've done today with that issuance of the aspect of the president's executive order 14248. So what you're seeing is essentially now 3 congressional bills experiencing momentum on here in Ohio is when you reference those points, when you show that there is this much activity happening nationally, and you find the right legislators, you build an electionization and a resolution to get out on record, and you use that momentum to drive the next point and the next point. And every step of the way, you have content, you have substance, you have evidence-based information for these people who don't follow it, who don't enact it like we do. And I think in that sense, like Gary Meyers was saying, that's how we are changing little by little and moving this ball forward, is we are taking each and every step forward, which is changing the variables for these folks that want status quo. They don't want change. Nobody wants change in public office. They want to be able to say they're doing something, but they don't want to enact it because it's going to create a disturbance in the world that they reside in. And our job is to create a necessary disturbance that is going to get them to recognize and do the right thing. But they've got to fear that, I think, to some degree, as Dan was saying. So that's my presentation. Those are some ideas. As much as we want to lead forward, just put this in context. It's taken 20 years for us to devolve into this current state of losing confidence in many ways and honesty of our election systems. And if we can stick together year after year and chip away at this at each and every state level and fight through it and bring more people on our team, we will prevail in the truest fashions of the American constitutional republic. So that's all I have today.
Thank you very much, Marcell. Raj, can you give me the screen?
Stand by. Okay, great, Steve, you're on.
All right, so before we go on, I want to let everybody know that I will take all suggestions. Raj and I always grab suggestions. And if anybody has a suggestion, I'm going to put my email up, stern1054@gmail.com. My phone number, that's my office number. Or you can go to flagshirt.com to contact us. The important thing is you'd like to all suggestions, please take the time to email me. We spend a lot of time doing this. Raj and I work together closely. We work together with everybody who's on this call. It takes a lot of effort to get the people on in time, to keep going on in time. So the next person we have is going to be Dale Richardson. Dale's a good friend of mine. He's in Canada. And, we know we got all these tariffs going back and forth, and everybody's saying, the Canadians don't like us. We don't like the Canadians. We love the Canadians. Dale Richardson, his daughter lives in, I think, Arizona now. Dale, you'll have to let me know. Dale, come on down. We appreciate you coming all the way in from Canada.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. She's just outside of DC right now, doing some work over there. Raj, are you able to pull up the slides, or do you need me to?
Yes, I can do that. Stand by.
Okay.
I should have had that ready to go. Give me just 30 seconds if you want to keep talking.
Yeah.
I'll have that video in 30 seconds.
Yeah. So this is going to kind of show how why Biden partnered with Fauci and how COVID was tied to this. And it starts in Canada because the guy we're going to see, his name is Maxime Bernier. They used election fraud to deprive him of the election because he's got policies similar to Trump, and they needed to forward what I'm going to show you now, which impacted the 2020 election. You able to have that up now or not yet?
Yes. So this is a Caris report video that we're going to play. Stand by.
Was not the candidate.
Stand by. Share screen. Share screen. Share audio. Great, Dale. Just confirm this is the video you want me to play?
Yes, this is the first one. Yes, this is the
Was not the candidate of the establishment. So what they did the night of the election, and you can see the video about that, they said, we have a winner. The winner is Andrew Scheer, 51%, Bernier, 49%, and we destroyed the ballots. So just, a couple of hours after the vote, they destroyed the ballot. And the day after, in the Global Mail, the big newspaper in Canada, they were saying that at that time we were about 240,000 members. And the Global Mail was saying, they had 250,000 votes. So, and they said that, 250,000 people voted, but we had 240,000 members. So they had to create 10,000 votes to be sure that, I won't win. And they did it. They cheated.
All right. So now when we get to the I guess we'll go to the first slide there, because it shows how Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance was getting money from the NIH and also from the USAID. And so they were funding this to go ahead and put together the pathogen in Wuhan. Do you have the slides up, or do you want do you have them up?
So here's what I've got so far. I have the video that I played, and I've got this. I don't have slides unless I'm making a mistake here.
Okay, here, I'll get the PowerPoint up here. Just give me a second.
Okay, great.
I can do that. Just let me share a screen here. 1 second. Okay. Okay.
I can see your screen. I can see your screen. C19 election fraud. Go ahead.
All right. So this next slide here, this is showing what I was talking about with the EcoHealth Alliance and the USAID and how they were funded to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. What people don't realize is that here in Canada, we had a Chinese scientist that was connected to the Chinese army and so forth here at the Winnipeg Biolab, and they were taking level 4 pathogens, like Nipah virus was one of them, they were sending over to Wuhan. And through the documentation that they had in parliamentary hearings here in Canada, and also with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, they showed that she did have connections to the Wuhan Institute of Virology and so forth, and that was working with mRNA technology. And this was done at the same time that they were doing this over there in Wuhan. And so then eventually, both the CDC and the WHO knew the lockdowns and all knew that they had to do this in order to go ahead and do what they did in 2020. And now I have a book here called COVID-19 and Negligent Engineering Practices Will this kill people? This explains how they accomplished this, how they effectively spread the pathogens in order to do what they did. And so this was a lot of crime. Here I have on this next slide, this demonstrates the hierarchy controls that tells you engineering is the first step when you're coming towards getting rid of a pathogen. But they effectively did this wrong, and the CDC was responsible for this, which allowed them to go down to do all these other changes. So you have the crimes there that are outlined. This should have been shut down in 2020 when I brought this forward in Canada. And the doctor here, Dr. John Conley, he was also on the steering committee in the WHO to make sure that they suppressed the aerosol spread so that they could continue the agenda. So now we go over here, you have the and occurring, and the paper that I have over there, it demonstrates that the Nipah virus sequencing that came from the Winnipeg biolab that was taken by that Chinese doctor was put together in Wuhan with Peter Daszak and Eco Health Alliance. This is why Dr. Fauci was pardoned, because he had knowledge that the Canadians were taking a level 4 pathogen to a level 2 lab, knowing fully well that it would escape in order to do what they did to take out Trump, right? And so Canada also identified that there was a biological threat and that China had a strong possibility of using pathogens to push their geopolitical agenda, which is exactly the United States as well. CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, identified that Canada was a high priority target for foreign interference because of its relationship to the United States. And Canada is heavily controlled by China. It's common knowledge that there are MPs right now in the House of Commons in Canada that are under Chinese control, but they won't do anything about it. And this is one of the reasons why, because they needed to conceal what was going on to help to create the circumstances for the election fraud. Canada actually also mentions that the 2020 election was a source of where there could be potential Chinese interference. So we were well aware of this and said nothing, did not share it with anybody, and it's supposed to be allies. Now we have this documentation that demonstrates that the Democratic Party are tied to the biological weapons program. And I have this further on. If you go to follow me at DGS Richardson on X, you'll be able to see some of the threads. I actually talked about this with John Goodman in a podcast a couple of weeks ago, where I outlined this and how this is tied together. And then finally, the NIH puts out a paper that talks about the changes that were made to the elections as a result of COVID. The same COVID that they funded to be released with Peter Daszak and the Eco Health Alliance with the help of the Chinese, which is 100% treasonous activity. And then they go ahead, and this last chart will demonstrate right here all of the different changes. They called it election flexibility, but you can see on this chart here, all of these changes that were made as a result of that COVID were done off the backs of treasonous activity. This is something that needs to be brought forward, because they have used this pathogen expressly to interfere with the 2020 election. And everything that is tied to this is now tied to what they did here, because that created the circumstances for a massive election fraud in the United States, and also subsequent frauds here in Canada, because they have to maintain a China-controlled government to suppress this so that they can continue with this agenda in both of our countries.
Dale, we got to cut you off. Unfortunately, we got somebody that's got to come on and got to leave. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll get you on again next time. Raj, you want to talk before Joe comes on? He's got to leave by 4:05. Go ahead, Raj.
He's done. Joe, thanks for being here. Please go ahead and unmute. And you're up, Joe. While Joe, oh, there we go. All right, go ahead, Joe. And if you could stop the share screen, Dale Richardson.
Yeah, Raj and Steve asked me to jump on and offer some up-to-date comments on Tina Peters. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or if it's already been mentioned, but Tina was moved today from a jail to prison in Colorado. And as we all sit back and watch this massive abuse of what's going on in this country, it's almost a bit shocking. I did talk to somebody today too that said that some of the individuals that have been in jail with her are now at the same prison, and there's concerns that they may indeed perhaps even cause her some physical harm. So that's where Tina is moving, unfortunately, and all for, as many of you know, for really having the courage to stand up and say, hey, something's going on here with our elections. And numerous people, many people on this call have been impacted as well for standing up for the truth and saying, hey, something's not right here. And so this seems to be what's happened with the Biden Obama regime. Their tactic, as well as tactics for most communists, is first steal the election, steal the next one, people stop voting, and then show no mercy and absolutely take over a country. Absolutely, we're in those stages right now. President Trump has given us a reprieve, and we've got a few really limited months to get this fixed because the clock is ticking. I think with this week with Wisconsin, we saw how fragile the system is, especially with the election results there. So one other piece that
and Joe, just while we're
on
on Tina Peters, so we know that there's a little bit of confusion with people. Some people say this is going to be Trump's project to resolve. Other people saying no, Trump, this has got Tina Peters' case is completely out of the jurisdiction of President Trump. When we chatted earlier today, we did speculate on two people where that massive political pressure needs to be brought down on if
that we should put absolute pressure on. One's the governor, as a matter of fact, I think all three are maybe involved in Tina as a president. Today, Raj, I got a word from actually Matt shared me this, that the Attorney General of Colorado has signed on and actually filed a piece of, I don't know what you actually call it, a filing with Tina's case, where President Trump and his team announced a couple of weeks ago that they were going to look into this whole situation with Tina Peters and her arrest and her imprisonment, saying that it appears to be way overstated. Well, the Attorney General sided with those that are arguing that President Trump had, basically, he's saying that President Trump has no standing. So that just came out today. We'll have to get that up and share that with you. So that's going on. That's the people we're dealing with. We've got to put pressure on the governor and Attorney General to get her out of there. And I do think the pressure works. As far as your first question, what can President Trump do? Well, one thing is this was a state court and a state crimes that they filed against Tina. So that prevents President Trump from offering a straight up pardon like he could if it was in a federal court. So that puts President Trump's team in a bit of a ringer. But Tina Peters came on my show about a month or two ago now, and she said, hey, we believe that the supremacy clause in the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, is on our side, that Tina was not just doing the work of the state when she was arrested, but she was also doing work on behalf of the federal government. It was a federal election, and that she was attempting to maintain records from that 2020 election, which was her job. Which there's, it's not just state law, but there's federal laws that mandate that she do so. So the argument was the supremacy clause states that the federal government supersedes, trumps literally over the state government. And in situations like this, the supremacy clause would come into play and would then provide for Tina relief to this whole situation because she was doing her job. I've talked to a top attorney at the time when this, after she shared it with Steve Bannon and some others, and be pursuing documents with Tina's case, and suggest that this is something that needs to be considered, not just the fact that this whole situation, like President Trump has already filed in his team, saying that it wasn't right, that it was beyond mean-spirited, it was an attack on Tina Peters, maybe on the American people, but that in addition to that, there's grounds that the supremacy clause, she was doing her job, and that would supersede any of this, and hopefully that too could get her out of prison.
Joe, next time we come on, which will be around the 24th, if she's not getting out of prison, or if they're not doing anything on appeal, we should go on a national level of having every podcast that it's on here, every show that you're on, every show that everybody's on, calling the governor and the secretary of state and whoever else we got to call, flood them with millions of calls. That's going to make a difference. So let's wait a couple of weeks. And one thing, the next time you come on, explain to everybody, because I know you don't have time, why she got put in jail for this ridiculous event. So thank you very much. I know you got to go for another call.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
it.
Thanks.
And we're going to,
Yeah,
Raj, you got anything to say before we get Bill Spadea on his bill on?
So a couple of things have been, a couple of very important things have been said on this call. Dan Schultz talked about the lack of organization, or said another way, the need for more organization that we need to be doing. And so the reason I brought that up is, as I mentioned on a previous call, we have launched the Trumpet Leadership Bootcamp, Trumpet Leadership Bootcamp, and you can see that over here. Trumpet Leadership Bootcamp. You can see the URL over there. We just launched that on Saturday. If that is of interest to you, please check it out. It is combining the best practices from Trump, Reagan, MLK, Wilberforce, Gandhi, other change makers, and the Bible to provide a biblical basis for being more effective in how we do what we do. So that's number one. Number two, and for this, let me go ahead and share my screen. Screen two, share. Again, want to remind folks to get their garments. So in addition to the guys, a lot of the guys that are speaking here are wearing the flag shirt garments, but there is a huge variety of women's garments, hats, just all kinds of great stuff. And if you want to make a difference for people in your community, just wear this when you go down the grocery store or wherever you are in life, and it just lifts people up. To the flagshirt.com. Many shirts that they have from the flag shirt. So whatever you're doing, please wear these garments, get them from the flag shirt, and that helps us put these events together. It takes a ton of resources, time to put this events together. So that's it. Now, continuing on, you heard Joe Hoff talk about the need to apply pressure. And so I want to just give you an example of what is going on in the state of Florida. So what is happening in the state of Florida is that legislation has taken on Trump's executive order to enhance election security. And in that effort, what they have done is they have put together HB 1381. So if you go to defendflorida.org, you can see the website behind me on the screen. And you can also see it on the screen here. This is HB 1381. And this may be happening in your state, but for those people that are here, I want to talk about two things. One, here's Trump's president's executive order. I don't have time to go through this. You can do that when you go to defendflorida.org. But you can see Trump's executive order. Here's the bill. The green stuff is stuff we like. The red is stuff we don't like. And so we're doing an analysis on that. And now do about it, because on time to time again, we keep hearing we need to apply more pressure. We need to. Joe Hoff and I talked about the governor. Do that. How do you do that? Well, certainly I definitely don't have the master class on that, but there are some things that I can show you that are working. And so what we did is we did on this matter here, HB 1381, on this particular matter here, we did a town hall completely run by volunteers and with the help of Steve Stern, the Caris Project, Cliff Gephardt, influencers and speakers, we were able to actually exert some pressure. And I want to show you what this looks like, because for those of you that are incensed and outraged by the treatment of Tina Peters for looking out for the rest of us, here is an action that I would like you to take. Go to the
There we go.
Let me mute this over here. This is an event that normally takes about 5 weeks to put together, but the volunteers in Pinellas County, which is the county that is the jurisdiction of one of the decision makers on this particular matter, a town hall was put together in about 4 days. And on that town, I'm going to play a few seconds of what happened in the town hall, because whatever you're doing, if you're on this call, it's probably righteous, it's probably right, it's probably important. Whether or not you can pressure the 1 or 2 individuals that will get the ball rolling is a thing that you have to ask yourself. And so here is one way we did it in Pinellas County here in Florida on that bill, HB 1381, because bad parts are in that bill.
It froze up, Raj.
The fraud, dollars of fraud is being put in the sunlight. Why then is Representative Linda Cheney blocking all of that and instead putting a bill forward that removes surveillance, removes photographs, removes human intervention in audits? Why is she doing that?
She's being told to, and she's not listening to her constituents. She's listening to her puppet master. There you go.
Someone is saying here that Representative Linda Cheney is acting what she's being told to do by special interests, and she's not listening to her constituents. I'm just relaying to you what the people are saying. Wow, that's harsh. Well, someone is saying she's part of the election fraud mafia. This is what Floridians are thinking. This is what Floridians are saying.
Prove us wrong.
Prove us wrong. People are saying, Rep. Cheney, why won't you support Trump's election executive order? No alternatives to birth certificates. No birth certificates, no license.
Oh, hello. Did you touch that? Yeah. So with the help of the streaming partners, this word got out on Sunday last week. 24 hours later, the bill was gutted and rewritten with 2 important concessions given. The Senate bill was killed and appears to be still dead. We're not saying that the effort you just saw on video is the sole agent to make that change, but what I am saying and advocating to you that are on this call is that's the level that you have to get to. You have to become a massive thorn in their side, and you do that by making massive amounts of noise. That's one way to do that. So if that's of interest to you, please definitely go to trumpetleadershipbootcamp.com to figure out how you can do that in your location. And again, like Steve just mentioned, this injustice being done to Tina Peters, it affects all of us. I know we care about it. That's why so many organizations have done a lot of work on it. You may or may not be interested in the election integrity stuff happening in Florida, but I know that you are deeply affected by what's happening to Tina Peters. This is a type of widespread action that needs to take place regarding the governor, the attorney general in Colorado, and maybe then the ball can move forward. So with that said, I'm going to reel my time back to the next speaker, who is Bill Spades. Let me bring Bill.
Spadea, he's a media personality, and he's running for the governor of New Jersey. And I don't support a lot of people, but I know Bill for a long time. I was up in New Jersey speaking. I was on his radio show. He's a real man, real guy in New Jersey that's got to take over from the Democrats. So, Bill, come on down.
Opportunity, Raj. Thank you for letting me spend a couple of minutes with you guys. First of all, I hosted the show on New Jersey 101.5 Morning Drive. Had a show on Fox TV for 7 years. Last 10, I've been the number one host with more than 1 million people tuning in, and I have taken that incredible opportunity, and we launched a few years ago a group called the Common Sense Club. The idea of the Common Sense Club was to hold the Republicans accountable and to make sure that we could get involved in local races. And we got involved in hundreds of them and helped more than 400 local candidates win election in New Jersey, because it was the only way to fight back against the aggressive majority Democrats and the far left wing. 2 years of that, and that's success. I looked at the Republican Party and the opportunity with an open seat for governor in 2025. Turned out the Republican elite in the back room, all these guys that have been taking crumbs off the table of the Democrats for a couple of decades, we're going to nominate the same guy again. So my opponent in the Republican primary, Jack Ciattarelli, who supported licenses for illegals, which we know in New Jersey was a pathway to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes, supported that. And I decided that I would see if I could leverage what I've done on the radio into elected office. So I announced in June, New Jersey is a unique state, everybody. In New Jersey, every dollar you raise is matched by state government and taxpayers with $2. Now, not something that I recommend as a taxpayer, but as a candidate for governor, until I get a chance to change the rules, we're going to live by the rules. So I recently got endorsed by General Flynn. I was very honored and proud to get that endorsement. I'm endorsed by New Jersey Right to Life, National Right to Life, and I've had a great relationship with President Trump over the last few years. He's come on my show several times. We were with him at Bedminster, his golf course, a couple of weeks ago. My wife Jody and I were backstage with him when he came to Wildwood. So we have a very, very solid relationship. I don't know if he's going to get involved in the primary. We're of the mindset that we need to win this on the ground. We've raised a significant amount of money. We get our first 1.5 million check from the state on Friday. We'll get another 1.2 million next week, and we've just begun to fight. We've got 68 days until the primary. Now, on election integrity, we've looked at this. The governor in New Jersey has incredible powers, and it's the most significant power of any executive in any state government across the country. So when I looked at the president's executive order, I believe the governor through a state team and get us where we can start asking for identification to vote. We should be voting in person. In New Jersey, we have early voting. That means people are voting a week before the election. The advantage to that is most Republicans want to vote in person, and it has actually increased our turnout because Republicans now have weekdays a week ahead of time that they can show up and vote in person. So we're going to see how that plays out. But one thing that I proposed two things for when we win this. The first thing is I'm going to audit the chain of custody with all of our county clerks, all 21 county clerks. I want to know what their chain of custody is with these mail-in ballots. Number two, in addition to that, we're going to hopefully eliminate the automatic mail-in ballot system that we have now, where you can just request it for any reason, and you then are registered for indefinitely to receive a mail-in ballot. What I want to do is go back to absentee ballots. You know, when I was a first-time voter, we had to make an excuse. We had to show why we were not going to be in the state in order to vote by mail. So we're going to bring that back. But here's the key thing that I've made a big part of our campaign, and that is I want a re-registration of all voters. Registration is not the problem. The problem is that we have thousands and thousands. They just cleaned up about 200,000 voters that got thrown out. I want to require everyone to re-register. And I think like a driver's license, you should have to re-register every 5 years. And that will clean up dead people. That will clean up folks that are registered in multiple places. My wife, Jody, and I, we got the last election, we got 5 ballots mailed to my house, 2 of which we knew were dead people. So it's rampant. It's a problem. I'm running against a guy that decided not to challenge any of the votes in the 2021 election. And just to give you a perspective in New Jersey, this is going to be the bellwether for the rest of the country and how we're going to do in 2026. So I'm here conservative in the race. I've got 2 other opponents, we really have 4, but 2 of them haven't raised any money, so they're not relevant. One is a solid anti-Trump liberal senator from North Jersey. The other is the guy that's now been running for 9 years, and he has spent more than $25 million over that 9 years. This is his third run. He has spent $3 million in the past 6 months attacking me, and it's not sticking. We're in a close race. We're going to go in the field with a poll at the end of this week, and we're hoping that it will be a very close single-digit race coming into next week, and we'll have several million to spend on the air and in digital advertising over to look at New Jersey. Trump almost won the state, 5.5 points. He would have won it. We know with 900,000 illegals, we know with a lack of race, we think the fraud was about 3%. But when given the chance, my opponent, Jack Ciattarelli, in 2021, after he lost to Murphy, declined to challenge any votes. Declined to challenge any. So we took the election integrity fight, Act 1 in particular, this guy, Mario Kranjik, to say, we're going to prove the point. Democrats signing their ballot petitions, dead people signing the ballot petitions, people that were not registered to vote. The judge was incredibly liberal and let him stay on the ballot anyway, in our opinion, in violation of the law, but it doesn't matter. We proved the point that the establishment backroom Republicans are as bad, in my opinion, as the Democrats. So we're in a great position to win, mainly because in 2021, when we had two elections in the country of note, Virginia and New Jersey, Youngkin won with almost identical polling numbers to New Jersey, and Murphy got 4 more years. One difference. In Virginia, 6 out of 10 voters turned out to vote. In New Jersey, 6 out of 10 stayed home. So our grassroots organization and our organizations, I had to step away in order to be a qualified candidate, but the Common Sense Club, Common Sense New Jersey, Elect Common Sense was the average donation. So there is a groundswell. No one has a ground game that matches ours. We are ahead right now in every county, in some cases by double digits. And what we're going to do is take this all the way to the finish line in the next 68 days, focusing on Morris County, Bergen County, et cetera. But I wanted to prove a point by challenging some of the petitions to show the voters, not only will I challenge to make sure every legal vote is cast, but we will sue when this is done. Regardless of the outcome. Winning, this critical nature there is in New Jersey. We have a policy called 5756, which allows a child to decide they are a different gender and use the opposite sex bathroom, qualify for the locker rooms, get on the sports teams. If a teacher or administrator tells the parents, they can lose their job. So where we won these school board races, in almost every case, about 35 now, have overturned that ridiculous and egregious affront to parental rights and child safety. On day 1 by executive order, but it's important to secure the local governments to prevent this from ever happening again. So that's a lot of information. Is just so you know, pro 2A, served in the Marine Corps, pro-life, pro-Trump. I am the common sense conservative in this race, and I believe we are poised to win this and defeat the Democrats in November.
Bill, how do they reach you, or can they donate to you?
Small, the maximum donation is $5,800, but we're happy to take $7 instead of buying that latte at Starbucks. Just put it on our website. It's spadeaforgovernor.com. That's SPADEA for FOR governor.com. Spadeaforgovernor.com. I hope to be in touch, and I'd love to come back on again and give you a progress report.
So we have a lot of podcasters on here that are streaming this, as well as many
Awesome.
stations. So if they want to reach you on a personal level, how can they get a hold of you?
I'm going to give you my cell phone number. So if anybody wants to jot this down, it's best to reach me directly. And, you know, we've got a whole team so we don't fall too far behind. 908-403-1664. And it best, to be honest, if you would text me. Thank you for putting it in the chat, Melissa. 908-403-1664. Don't call first, text first, so I know who it is. And because my phone, as you can imagine, blows up, I'm the most you know, I think conversations and accessibility are critical to leadership.
Thank you
We
very
need to hear
much,
from the
Bill.
people.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
Running it. We'll get you back on again.
Thank you,
That's
guys. Appreciate everyone. Take care.
Got it. All right. Our next person is Linda Payne, Election Integrity Project. Kelly, to have her back in if she's on. Is she on?
I am. Thank you for having me.
You're quite welcome.
Very good. Okay, I got 10 minutes. I'm gonna narrow in what I'm telling you today, and I'm really excited that you're all still here because this is a long endurance race. EIPCA we started in 2010, so we're just starting our 15th year. But our focus this year is regarding a research that we did of doing an audit of the 2022 certified election in California. And we wanted to see if anything changed with California's election laws. There's just a lot of moving parts, a lot of shenanigans. And we know that in 2024, we were anticipating that there were going to be flip seats as usual. So we were able to order the exact snapshot of the data that was sort of really quick. What we identified is after the 2022 election was certified and sent in, when we ordered, now we all know this is illegal. The thought that we had is why didn't someone catch it at the federal level, and who's even looking at it at the federal level? But the numbers look like this. Bottom line, there were a double and triple voting was 22,000. LA County alone had 49,777 votes that were rejected and counted, double and triple people who voted with the same exact ID number, double and triple. The bottom line between, if you take out all the ballots that were added and the ballots that were taken away, and those ballots, if they belong to legitimate voters, were disenfranchised because they lost their ballot. Bottom line, we sent a letter to the Secretary of State on September 7th asking very specific questions about the data. We gave her of course, they ignored us. LA County, we also asked specifically how in the world did they change numbers after certification. Because they ignored us, we asked our attorneys with Advocates for Faith and Freedom to get involved and challenge their unwillingness to even talk to us. In California, there's an election code 2300 that allows citizens to ask questions and receive answers, and they have to answer. And if they can't answer, they have to direct us to someone who can. So because they refused to answer, our attorneys filed a peremptory writ of mandate, letting them know that we're not going to sue them, that just answer the questions. By the way, our open letter to the Secretary of State is on our website, eip-ca.com. You can see the press release we sent out, letting people know that we were challenging this act that they took to change the numbers after certification. And in that letter, there are where we give you those numbers. As of that time, that first peremptory writ, we cited in that writ all of the counties that made changes after certification. And that meant all of the counties in the state of California, except Little Modoc County, changed the numbers after certification, with LA County being the largest. In communicating with the smaller counties, our attorneys met with their attorneys, and they agreed to make changes in their procedures to ensure that that didn't happen in 2024. But LA County refused to talk with our attorneys, and so did the Secretary of State. So we amended the writ to let the smaller counties off the hook with the understanding they would make changes. and we continued with this the writ with LA County and Secretary of State. So right now, they have another week or two to either answer the questions. They still haven't. Those questions are on the website. If they don't, then our attorneys are taking the next step in filing an actual lawsuit. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know all the thinkings that they're putting into it, but it does appear that there is criminal action potentially, because we know that congressional seats were secured by the elections in 2022, and we do know from our work of the voter rolls that the seats that were flipped would have been Republicans, and the seats that were seated were Democrat. We're a nonpartisan organization, but the facts are the facts, and so we're continuing to challenge that. We'll take it aside to go as deep and wide as they can, go to the highest level of governance, if it's the president, to challenge the 2022 questions as to who is sitting in Congress, because ballots were added after certification. Anyway, we're doing that. We're also continuing we're putting together a memo actually for Congress. We'd like to make some recommendations from California. Most of the country thinks that Californians voted to destroy themselves, and I continue to tell everyone that is the furthest thing from the truth. Californians are fierce. Our team is 20,000 observers. We've trained 20,000 observers since we started in 2010, who've observed 40 out of 58 counties, election after election after election. And so we can prove that these laws in California, which are being implemented in all of your states, that they are unconstitutional because they create a system that can be manipulated. So I know I don't have too much more time. I think I have 2 more minutes. And so I don't know if there's any questions or I can open it up to questions if someone has a question.
If you could put your contact information again on chat. And as we begin to wrap up, a couple of very important, and that is, again, I know you're probably going to get tired of hearing this, but I do want to ask you to go to this website here, the flagshirt.com. You can see that flagshirt.com, because your purchases there actually do make a difference for having this event take place. There's so many people that have to be paid to do work, a lot of expenses. So
You're breaking up a little bit, Raj. Can they hear me, Raj? We may have lost the video. Can somebody raise their hand? Linda, can you raise? Okay, so we can't hear Raj. He's breaking in and out, but let me just go back. We have a lot of computers in our control room today, and we're looking at all the chat. And a lot of the chat, thanking Raj for everything he's doing. They're also saying communication is the most important thing. That's what I believe in. The reason we hold this is to communicate to all the people that are out there that don't get to listen or know what's going on in election integrity. And my email, let me know what you'd like to see or hear. We try to bring a variety of people on today. We think it's very important for the New Jersey governorship. Very important. We got to get a Republican in there. And I've only endorsed maybe 3 candidates in my life. One of them, of course, was President Trump. And I'm going to endorse Bill Spadea for governor. So, and again, if anybody wants to email me on sstern1050@gmail.com, I want your comments. You can call me at 954-318-6902. And I think, Raj, you can put your information up because you have a lot to offer. You don't always get a lot to speak because I take it over, but go ahead, Raj. It's all on yours, but you are.
All right, good. How's the audio now, Steve? Is that better? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, awesome. Great. All right, thank you, Steve. So back screen again here, the flagshirt.com, the flagshirt.com. Go to the flagshirt.com. If you are here and you're watching this on the live stream, you probably are not getting our emails just to 9/17/76. A lot of people are asking about the leadership program that I mentioned earlier. That is on the screen here, right over here. And so if you would like to check out the leadership program, simply go to trumpetleadershipbootcamp.com. trumpetleadershipbootcamp.com. If you want to see the video of that town hall meeting that I mentioned earlier, we think it did help with the changes. And we spend florida.org. So with that said, I think that wraps us up, Steve, until the next.
Our next one is going to be the 24th. I want everybody to go to Stern American and follow me, and also follow John Goodman on X. He really helps. He works very, very happy Easter and a happy Passover. Thank you all for all your contributions. All you're calling them. Sometimes they get called out and they can't come on. We have an apology from Catherine Engelbrecht, who got laryngitis, and she said I couldn't talk if I wanted to, so she'll be on the next one. A lot of people asked me why she wasn't on. That's why. She emailed me about 6 this morning, said I can't talk. There's Rumble, Stern American. You can see everything we're doing. I'm glad to everybody. This is a great effort on the people of all our podcasters who make this happen, because Stern American started with 100 people. We got today, I think they said we got somewhere at 18,000. Sometimes we get 40,000. That's unbelievable when you think about when you start 100 and you reach. So the communication, the words getting out. The most important thing today is Tina Peters. We love her. We are going to make an effort. I'm going to take a lot of time to do this and get on any program I can get on to get her released from prison. Thanks again to everybody, and happy holidays.
Hey, one other thing, Steve. Dale, if Dale is still here, people are asking for Dale Richardson's contact info. Dale, if you're here, please repost that. I'm looking here. But yeah, you are here, Dale, so please put your contact information again on the chat. Thank you for that. Stern American, people are asking, how do you get the replays? Steve just mentioned, I just want to say it again, click on the Rumble button and you can see all the videos here. We had some for that, and you had clean audio there. See you at the next meeting. Stay active, stay strategic, and look for where you can go out of your comfort zone, because that's what's going to be needed to save